Yeah.
And since his demise, we haven't actually filled in that vacuum.
My father had always believed in sports as a means of promoting the youth and as also opening opportunities to the youth. And we set up Abiola Football Club then. My mother set up a girls' club, also a ladies' club, football club. And they went all the way to China with that on my mother's side. And with Abiola Babes, we were all over Africa. I mean, it was so crude that if we had to go play a match in Zambia, for example, we'll have to fly up to Europe first before coming down. It was that crude because that's the way things were infrastructure-wise back then. So he invested not just a lot in Abiola Babes, but anything to do with sports. He was the biggest and if not the founder, but also the only sponsor of what used to be Youth Fund. Youth Fund was a way of developing talent from very young, primary, secondary school, all the way to international and the national team. And since he's passed away, there's been a dearth in talent, local talent. The little that make it through are always out in the country. The league is not the same way it used to be back then. We had the IICCs, we had the Mighty Jets of Jos and everything. Then it was YO International and so on. And he dedicated not just funds, but time to sports. And the only reason why he moved out of Abiola Babes back then and just focused on sports development was because he needed to have some control on the game. And what we came together as the Private Owners Proprietors Association. We came together then and decided, look, let's own the stadiums, let's run the shows, and let's run the take-ins and all the sponsorship. And we all sat down and agreed, because what would happen is that we'll have a full stadium, and the NFA will come back and say they only made 3,000 naira. And it's still full stadium. And that's what the clubs are supposed to do.
Take-ins then.
Exactly. And the get take-ins. And you didn't have all the sponsorship. It was individually funded. So we wanted to commercialize the game and at least let it reach as many as possible. We had an agreement that we would demand that of NFA and the sports ministry. We went to that meeting and they refused. And one or two of the clubs decided that they were going to renege on the agreement. Especially, I think if I recall, then YMO was one of the guys that reneged then, and one other club, I can't remember now. But all the IICCs and the Leventies, all of us decided to pack it up and just face first sports development at a college and academical level. And
because I remember Youth Fund, honestly, and now I think we now have a lot of people making incursion into grassroots, sports development.
Yeah, we are corporate.
But Youth Fund was actually big back in the day.
It was very big then. We had competitions nationwide. First at the state level, and then from the state level you go to the national level back then. And all sponsored by MKO, 100% back then.
Well, so I think
even the original CAF Cup was MKO.
I remember.
Yeah, the CAF Cup was bought and donated by MKO, and the whole program was sponsored by him back then, way back then. Anywhere we went to play, he would charter a whole Nigeria Airways DC-10 and fly everybody out there. That was him, for sure.
There's some of the things that you have touched on that. I'm bothered to ask now. Perhaps I'll save that for last, because some of these businesses, some of these issues that we've just touched on. First, we talked about flying these people. What comes to mind as Concorde Airlines, and of course, and I also remember then we were also reading up the Concorde from the Concorde Press stables. We were having Concorde newspapers and so many other things. But again, in politics, which you did say, by virtue of what God has, placed you in the family as the first son and first grandson from both sides, and the kind of respect granddad also gave to you while even a very young man. Did your father, now we're looking at his political life now, did he at any point in time asked or spoke to you before he went into active politics?
Well, yes, it was discussed, and yes, it was also discussed in the last week or days of my late mom. And contrary to what's out there, she never told him not to run or never get into politics.
She never did?
She never told him not to.
I read that.
Okay, what she said was, look, the way it's being played now, she's not sure it's going anywhere. I'm not telling you not to run. I can't stop you from running. But allow IBB to finish his program, and then you can get involved. That was the thing. That was, because I mean, it was just a matter of time. It was his next step.
That's Alhaja Simbiat. That's
Yes,
your mother.
Right. It was really his next step. But she felt the timing then was not right. And the thing we all agreed to then was that he would allow this to play out and then subsequently get involved. But Allah has his own way of doing things. He didn't wait for that, and the rest is history now. But that is so when he went out to pick up the form in Abeokuta back then, he didn't tell me because he knew what the agreement we had was. So and I equally acted as if I didn't even know that he did it. I mean, obviously, it was all over the news, but
what agreement now? Did you
that we're not going to get involved at that point.
At that point,
yeah. So when he went out to Abeokuta, I think he came in from Abuja, drove straight to Abeokuta and picked up the nomination form. Under the A4 plan, you have to start at the state level. And he went out, got that form. I knew, obviously, but since he didn't tell me, as far as I'm concerned, you're not involved. So I left it. I didn't say anything for a while, for a long while. And then he sent a few people to get me to get involved. And I said, well, till I hear from him, as far as I'm concerned, he's not involved. And he now wrote me a letter, which I still have. I said, well, Kola, I'm definitely in this, so what's holding you back? So I went to see him, and then I gave him an outline, because I'd worked it out in my head. So I gave him an outline of what I thought and how I think we should go. And it played out to the T. To the T. I sat down, wrote out, and I think Olu Akerele is still alive. I have a note, I wrote everything out, and I thought this is how I think we should go. We won't have a choice, and a running mate. It has to come from a northern Muslim. I said the whole script. By the time I sat with him and discussed it with him, he said, oh, yeah, now that what is missing is here. and he was so excited, and I'm like, well, how do you undo everything you started before I came? He said, actually, don't worry, leave that to me, I'll sort it out. And that's how the Hope 93 thing started, and we put it to work. I was young.
You should be in your 20s then.
I was 28, 29 then. And I had the opportunity, which I don't regret to this day, irrespective of the outcome, to jump in from the deep end. I started with the presidential elections. Before then, I'd done a few things politically outside of school for my mom. My mom ran for the Senate under PDP back then. I was a polling agent, campaign agent, and all that, but that was secondary school. I also traveled Nigeria with my father, MPN, in those days when he was trying to be party chairman. I was all over the place with him then. And then this time, I was more a bit older, young, but a bit older, and
well, anyway, I think we'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll look at some of those pressing issues, because I did say, well, we didn't have the social media then, but the social media was really, really, really busy at that point in time. And you have actually touched on one of those pressing matters, because then it was rife that mom, that's Alhaja Simbiat, did say, hey, I wasn't giving you my backing, don't go. But now you just clear the air on that. So we'll take a moment. While we'll come back, Kola Abiola is still very much here in the kitchen, and we'll look at more.